sit. I think I'm gonna sit back here and then I can jump up and down and.
Oh, you're not gonna be in this.
I won't be in, no. This is you. But I wanna get comfortable. I tell you what, let me get this chair, if that's okay, and then.
Sure, why don't you sit in that one, in that one?
Well, then I'll make noise because that, from time to time, I need to jump up and check my camera, so I won't make noise in time. Well, this is a neat place. I missed a lot by not coming out here sooner.
Well, I'm sorry, on one of our fire alarms.
Yeah.
Too bad.
What I like to do, if you let me, is can I bring Amy out one day, my fiance, and I'll let her meet you. But
Yeah.
no, she'd love to see the gardens because there again we're into the dirt now. In fact we go around a lot of the old winter houses. I check, I watch them when they go out of town for the summer.
Yeah.
And we were around Mr. Goodyear's house the other night. I was checking it, and we were just busy pinching off things and taking them home and rooting them.
Oh, yeah.
So we.
That's the hard way to get things going, though.
It is take time.
Yeah.
But see what I tell, I say, well, you have to talk to them and give it love just like a child, and eventually you'll just.
They'll flourish.
Yeah, they'll flourish.
Well, I'm gonna give you some poppy seeds.
Okay. And I'll bring you some orange ones when we
I
come.
need orange ones, yeah.
Oh, they're gorgeous. And I think we still have like some purple ones that we got from her mom.
I don't think there is such a thing as a
Well, purple. Well, they're.
purple. They are, huh? Maybe.
Yeah.
They're almost black.
No, they're light. They're more of a blue, a colorish blue, but they're more they're purplish.
Yeah, I need that.
Deep.
Okay,
I like
I'll get you some of them.
Deep.
Because you know where we keep them between seasons, and we learned from our mom is in the freezer. Like all the seeds, the marigolds and stuff. At the end of the summer, we'll get them off the plant and dry them out in the garage, and then we put them in baggies and put them in the freezer, and that's how we keep them. And they come right back up as long as you have them dry good.
What if you just let some of them just fall on the ground?
Well,
Plant them and, what's it been wrong? I don't have any, well, I probably have something else, yeah, but, no, the mint is long gone. That was a generation or two ago that
Okay.
happened.
so that was from, how would that, what, you were talking about Miss Phelps, Claudia?
Right.
Okay.
They came
Tell
down.
me, how, of course, down the street from the firehouse, I was always aware of the house and stuff, but I never knew who she was or why she came to Aiken or what
Well,
she
the
did.
Phelps family came from New Jersey, and their home was Teaneck, right where today is Teaneck, New Jersey. That was all their family property. And they came down here in the winter, beginning in about 1898. And they stayed in two houses, one year and one the next. And they're still there on Greenville Street. One was called Serenity and one was called Tranquility.
Okay. And both
they're-
houses are still there today?
They're still there.
Okay. Which would be what, Rose, do they still call that Rose Hill?
But Rose Hill, well, it's,
that one
what
of
is
them?
it called now? Yeah, it's called Rose
Okay.
Hill Estate.
Are both houses within the
No,
brick wall?
one of them belongs to the Brodies. It's on the corner of Barnwell and Greenville.
Okay.
And the other one is where the Chesters used to live. It faces Greenville Street. It's right across from the front gate of Rose Hill.
Okay.
Anyway, so the Phelpses rented those two houses in 2 successive years. And then they bought the farm that was across the street.
Okay.
And-
Which later became Rose Hill?
Which later, yeah, then they added to it. And the front path was on Greenville Street. And what is now the billiard room has 4 columns on the outside. That was the original front of the old farmhouse. And then they just added to it.
Okay.
And they left a list of rooms to be added. Made all the plans and left a master carpenter in charge and went to England. And when they came back, the house was pretty well built. And I think that's why it's got so many funny little crooks and crannies and halls. And, you can't even tell how many rooms there are in it because you have to decide what is a room. There's so many strange little closets and things. But they moved in by 1900. And then Grandfather Phelps died of typhoid in just a few years. He
What?
only lived in that house a few years.
And what was his name? I always hear Claudia Phelps, but what was grandfather?
Well, he was Sheffield Phelps,
Okay.
and his wife, whom we call Grandmother Phelps, was Claudia Wright Lee Phelps.
Okay.
And then they had 3 children, and the oldest was Uncle Walter Phelps, who later lived over on York and South Boundary.
Okay.
And then Aunt Claudia, who never married, and my mother-in-law, Eleanor Phelps, who married Dr. Harry Wiles. You
Okay.
probably knew of him, didn't you?
Yes. And then, of course, I remember the Phelps at South Boundary.
Yeah, that was the
Okay.
brothers.
And
He
then-
had 3 sons.
Okay. And then he, of course, Mrs. Phelps, they sold the house and she moved next door and then
And built another one.
built another one.
Just like.
Okay.
just
And
like
then her son, who is what,
Mike.
Sheffield too? Well, Mike. Okay, Mike
Yeah, he
lives over on Grace and Sumter.
That's right,
Okay.
yeah.
To oh, it's Mrs. Patty. No, what's his wife's name? Mike.
Patty.
Patty
Yeah.
Phelps. Okay.
But they have a lovely house. They've done a lot to it.
Mhm.
So he's the only family member who has come back to Aiken. All the rest are scattered. There were 5 nephews and 1 niece in that family, and he's the only one who's back here. And then my husband, a doctor, came here, and came here about 1954, I think. And we lived in the cottage at Rose Hill. The cottage is a fairly sizable.
Which would be down on Edgefield
Yeah,
Avenue side?
It sort of
Okay.
rambles down the hill. It has
Okay.
1 bedroom that's about 25 feet long. It's a big house. And so that's where my children grew up, which left them singularly unfitted for city life anywhere. They all have to get out. One works in the mountains, one has a farm in Japan, they're used to a lot of space. But they had a very, very happy childhood in that house. And the gardener was named Albert Myers, and he and his family lived in a house on the property down behind the stable. And he had a little daughter named Wendell Denise, who was exactly the age of my youngest child, Stephanie. So these 2 little girls grew up together playing in the garden. And I didn't have to worry about them because they always sort of trailed around wherever Albert was raking or working. So he watched them all the time. And I didn't know until just a few years ago that he let them go skinny dipping in the fish pond when nobody was around. But anyway, Stephanie then went into landscaping after college out in San Francisco, and she decided to come back to the East Coast. And they asked her to see to the restoration of the gardens at Rose Hill, because she had collected all the old photographs, all the records of the place. And so as soon as she took the job, she went out and found Albert and employed him to come and help her. So there were Stephanie and Albert in the garden together after nearly 30 years.
And is Albert still alive today?
He's alive and well, and I think he's still working part-time at Rose Hill.
Yeah, really?
So when I go up there, it's so nice. Albert was always there.
How old would he be now, in his 70s?
Late 70s,
Yeah.
yeah. But he's in
good
very
health.
good health.
All that good fresh air all those years.
Yeah.
good
and
living and fresh
very
air.
peaceful, tranquil place to be.
And the Phelps, was that basically a summer home for them? Or did they
Winter
kind of
home.
stay, winter?
It was
Okay.
a winter home.
Okay.
And then in the summers, they went to England. And then they had a home up in Bar Harbor, Maine. And it was a beautiful house up there, very much like the one here. It's sort of rambly, a Dutch colonial house. And Grandmother Phelps died in 1955, and Aunt Claudia was alone from then on in the big house. So she got to where she would invite me for tea every single day, which was Dubonnet. So I heard many, many of her stories over and over and over. And she lived until about 10 years ago. Died in her early 90s. And Albert and his wife Ann were right there the whole time to take care of her.
No, that's good.
Very, very faithful.
What did the Phelps do for, like, where did their wealth come from? Was it old family money, or?
Yeah, they had old family money. My husband always said that they got it originally in colonial times by bringing over lead busts of Julius Caesar and, famous European personages, and they brought them in duty free as objects of art, and then they melted them down and sold it for lead roofing to all the colonists.
Right.
But I'm not sure that's the sole source of their money. They were stockbrokers, and they had this huge property in Teaneck, New Jersey, which was a big farm in colonial times, and eventually the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad went through, and they made a killing selling land for that, and then their home there later became a hospital. It was so big. So I don't think Grandfather Phelps ever worked, and they came down here to find a healthy climate. Their son, Walter Phelps, was very frail, and they thought this would be a good place for him to spend the winters. And right at the front of the house, there was a well, and it's still there. It has roses on it. You know what I'm talking about? It has a little conical roof, and that supplied the water for the family. And Grandfather Phelps caught typhoid from drinking
that well?
Yeah, he was very, very ill, and he died. And then Grandmother Phelps just made it her winter home. And the children had ponies, where the stable is, where the art center later was. And all behind it was nothing but pine woods. So they could ride their ponies from the stable almost to Edgefield if they wanted to. And the only thing that was up there was that huge Park at the Pines Hotel.
Which wouldn't have been up on the hill, like off of Morgan Street?
Yeah, up
in that
high,
part?
on Tool Hill.
Okay, on Tool Hill.
And it burned on a Sunday morning, my mother-in-law told me. And back then they used to have a different fire bell signal for the 4 quadrants of town. And so all the people in the St. Thaddeus Church, and I'm sure all the other churches, heard the fire signal, and they immediately knew that it was on the northwest part of town. So all the people that lived in northwest Aiken got up and went out to see what the fire was, and the other 3/4 of the townspeople knew that they were not in any danger. And of course it was a huge frame hotel, and once it started nobody could stop it. So I don't know what year it was that it burned.
Did you ever, what's some other stories you hear Miss Phelps tell? You ever hear her tell stories about what, old Aiken or other people, the railroads?
Well, I know that they used to have cockfights in the alley on Saturday afternoons because the governess, what's her name, Miss Trowbridge, would take the children walking into town on Saturdays, but she always wanted to, supposed to get them home long before the cockfighting started, because she thought that brought in the rougher elements of society, and she didn't want the children around. And I think in those days, the main shopping street was Newberry rather than, it was around the corner of Newberry and Richland. And there was an artesian well pumping station there. I've got a beautiful picture of it. Should never have been torn down. And I don't know where the water goes now, but there must still be water under there somewhere. Then later there was a swimming pool there. Do you remember that?
I remember. In fact, when I started hanging around the fire station when I was like 7, they were just starting to tear all that down.
That's not where the bath club used to be, is it? No, that was over, where was Aiken Bath? Do you remember that? It was a very tiny, I'll never forget. All I heard when we moved here was Aiken Bath, Aiken Bath. Rode over there, and it was about the size of that settee. I was never so disappointed as a child.
I don't
Okay.
But I've heard of it too.
Yeah. But I remember there was on Newberry Street,
Yeah.
I remember the building, and there was a lot of hedges and just an old building and stuff, and the old swimming pools over there.
Is that one of the buildings you were talking about that they had never, where the well was, that they should have
The
never?
artesian well pumping station, I believe, was stone or brick, and I believe Julie and Sally told me that it was on Newberry Street, but it was quite a handsome, big, two-story, important-looking building. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know what
You
else.
never
happened.
saw it
Never
in the
saw it.
50s, so it must
It's
have
like
been
the
in the
Aiken
40s.
Depot on Union Street. It was a beautiful, beautiful building. Just the most elegant thing, and it should never have been torn down. And the Presbyterian Church, the first one was very beautiful.
I remember that across from the post office.
Carpenter's Gothic, beautiful little building. Looks like some of the churches in, in Granite, Borden, Batten, I think. Very pretty church.
I felt the same way about St. John's too, their little, what would have been a wonderful chapel. Do you remember St. John's Methodist, when it was the white
White
frame?
frame, yeah.
Beautiful.
See, I cannot see that the changes have improved anything. One of the nicest things I remember about living at Rose Hill while my children were growing up was the absolute safety with which they could go to town. I could take them to a movie, and they would take good care of their little sister, and they could walk home. And every morning, Alex walked 1 block to the prep school, and Ellen walked 1 block to junior high school, and Stephanie walked a block to Meade Hall. I always knew, that they were within a block of home, and they took their dogs with them. And the dogs escorted them to school and turned around and came back and stayed in the backyard until recess, and then they went back to play at recess. And then they came home and waited till time to go collect the children in the afternoon. They
And
knew
probably-
the whole daily schedule.
They
of
did.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And probably you took them to the movies, which was what, Patricia?
And the Rosemary.
It's where the cinema is now, but it was called something else.
The
I think it
Rosemary.
was-
Patricia and Rosemary.
The Rosemary was quite nice, a little
Yeah.
nicer than the Patricia.
See, and I was in Bar Harbor 2 weeks ago, and they still had their old-time movie theater with the balcony and stuff.
Like they do in
Oh, they're
Austin.
so nice, yeah, and the balconies, the little boxes along the side, and
Yeah.
some of them.
See, and I can remember our old theater. In fact, you can still get up, and the old part of the movie theater is still there. If you go up through some attics and stuff. When I used to work midnight shift, we found a building open, got in there, and there was still like a room still up there from the original theater. It's still behind walls and stuff. You had to crawl through the attic to get to it, but it's there.
Yeah, save all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the nicest things about downtown Aiken, and maybe it'll come back a little bit, I don't know if it ever can, was the fact that everybody knew that Harry Sarasky ran one store, and I knew Mr. Bell, who was at Holly Hardware. We knew all the people by name, and they knew the Wiles children. So, if I ever lost one, I could just go ask him and say, oh, I saw him a little while ago. He was going over to Cress's or something. And one day, I had a German Shepherd named Jeremy who went to town with me. We didn't have leash laws, and he was very well behaved. He just walked along with me. And I went into the bank. I don't know what the name of it is now. It's the one that's next to the deli. You know that?
South Carolina National.
Yeah. Well, I walked in from the west side, and Jeremy sat down to wait for me. And after I did my banking, I thought of some shopping I wanted to do, so I walked out the other door onto Main Street and did my shopping and walked home. And hours later, I realized I couldn't find Jeremy. And I started calling him, and about that time the telephone rang, and it was one of the bank tellers and said, Miss Wiles, Jeremy's up here. He's still waiting at the back door. And he said he was so thirsty, so I gave him some water, but I know he's missing him. So I went back and got Jeremy. But you wouldn't find a bank teller now who would recognize the dog and know to whom it belonged and give the dog water and call the owner up. Those days are just over, and I think it's too bad.
Mm-hmm.
The
Well-
town was very, very much more comfortable in those days.
Could you, let's see, are you a member of St. Thaddeus? Is that your church or not?
Was, yeah.
Was, okay. I was going to say if you could tell what any of the history of the church or anything you know about the people or any old families.
I came here just after, a few years after the DuPont people came. And so just at the time that I came, there was a big influx of very, very active families. And the Deans and the Nightingales and the McLarens, lots of, and the McKellars. So that I sort of went into it when it was in a big growth spurt. And I met more of the newcomers than of the old timers. Of course, my husband's family went there forever. My mother-in-law is buried at St. Thaddeus. She's the only one of the family, I think, who, for some reason, is buried at St. Thaddeus. All the others are buried in Simsbury, Connecticut. But my children enjoyed it very much. Alex was an acolyte, and Ellen and Stephanie sang in the junior choir. And now Alex is a Buddhist, and I'm not sure what Ellen is. I don't have any Episcopalians left at all. But it was really a lovely church, and it was a good place for a family. They had very, very active young people's groups in those days.
And how about your husband was a doctor, as in medical doctor?
Yes, he was an OBGYN, and he was here until 1959, and he sold his practice to Dr. Ken Owens, who has practiced ever since and just retired last year.
Okay. Where's his office? Where was his office at?
office
Well, where was your
out-
husband's office?
My husband's office was out on Whiskey Road, close to Wisteria Manor. It's a white house. Vic and Dan had it as a florist place
Oh,
for a
okay.
while.
Oh, okay. Southern Tradition Building?
That's what it is, yeah.
Okay. That was the doctor's office.
That was the
Okay, I
doctor's
didn't know that.
office. Well, see, there was no new hospital. You know, the old Aiken County Hospital was the hospital. It did not have any doctor's offices around it much, so they were scattered all over town. Everybody, there was no nucleus of medical services. And we came here in 1955, 56. I think that's right. So I've been here almost 40 years.
Did you remember some of the other doctors back then?
Yes, I remember Dr. Eugene Hall and Niles Borup and Leslie Trauber, Jean Campbell, Tom Lattimore. See, they're all gone. And I know one night, one of the doctors and his wife, they had an enormous party and invited every doctor in town and spouse. And they had an inexperienced maid who was supposed to mix the punch, and didn't discover to the next day that she didn't understand to put fruit juice in it, and she was mixing up sort of solid vodka and champagne, and she didn't dilute it. Nobody realized it. And after about 2 hours, we were all just thankful that there were no accidents that night, because there was not one practicing physician there.
No one
They
available.
could have made it there. I mean, it was serious. But they were a jolly group, and most of them, you see, were fairly new to Aiken too, because before that, their doctors were Dr. Wiles, Dr. Brooks, about one or two others.
Was
maybe
McNair, what, was
Wyman.
McNair back then?
Jim McNair? No.
Phil McNair.
Phil.
Phil McNair,
Phil.
yeah. Yeah, he was a sort of in between age group, but there had only been 5 or 6 at the most doctors in Aiken, and only one dentist that I think was here. And then when SRS came in, well, that's when they suddenly had this influx of of new doctors. And we were among the first with this other group that I mentioned. All of whom are now gone, either dead or moved away.
Pick up the phone and dial 4 digits and that kind of thing way back then. Huh?
Oh, yes. And another funny thing that you just cannot believe now is that when you went to the grocery store, if you decided you wanted to pay for your groceries with a check, you would just say to the checker, may I have a farmer's and merchant's check, please? And she would just tear off one and hand it to you. It just said Farmers and Merchants Bank. Nobody had an account number. And nobody ever asked to see a driver's license or asked what your address or your telephone number was. And most people didn't keep track of the checks that they wrote. They just wrote them and just handed them around all over town, and nobody ever questioned.
Or you probably just said, put it on the bill or something, charge it, or whatever the expression was back then.
Yeah.
Like when you'd go to the drugstore or something
You just
like
say, put
that.
it on the bill, and they say, sure, and just walk out. Didn't even sign a tab.
Isn't that amazing?
And I can still do that at Aiken Builder Supply. I can call over there and say, I'm going to send my gardener over for some boards and some bricks or something. Would you put that on my bill? And they say yes. I don't even have a bill. You know, I never have filled out any application for credit. They just charge it.
So the
They know
computer.
you're good. They know you're good for it.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly a simple and nice way to live. And I've always thought that people in Aiken had outstanding manners. And most of them still do. People hold the door open for each other at the post office and say good morning, whether they know you or not. And my brother, who grew up in the South and now lives in Pittsburgh, just adores to come down here. He says he can feel a difference in the air and in the atmosphere when he steps off the plane in Augusta. He says the Augusta airport looks like a country club, and it does with all those umbrellas and tables and chairs outside, you know. He said it doesn't even feel like an up-to-date airport, and he just loves it. And I took him with me to one little gas station that I used to go to, which was a self-serve station, but the man didn't think ladies ought to pump gas, so he always came out and filled it up. And when I paid him, he said, now you have you a nice evening. And I said, thank you, same to you. And my brother was just hilarious. Thought that was wonderful.
I enjoyed meeting your brother.
Yeah.
I thought he was a delight.
Isn't he cute?
Oh.
I have a twin.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
And now, since Alex grew up in Aiken and teaches in a university in Japan, I have to send him care packages with cornbread mix and barbecue sauce and black-eyed peas. He has to have certain things to keep him happy in Japan.
Tell, well, of course, I guess you're into the arts and everything, kind of. Can you relate any of that to me?
Well,
Any of our local artists or how things happen?
Well, I was trained right out of college in art school as a stained glass window maker, but I quit when I had little children because it's too hard to, you just can't do it. But I was still interested in art, and in the late 60s and 70s, there was very little organized activity except there was an Aiken Artists Guild, and they had one show a year outside down in the park, right off Main Street and Park Avenue. And I asked Aunt Claudia if we could use the Staples and start an art center there, because it's such a charming building. And she was glad for us to use it, so we got the stable all cleaned out and asked the Artists Guild to help us start. And it just took off like a rocket. And we had classes for beginners and advanced classes, and in the summer we had children's classes, and it survived there until just last year. And then with the change of ownership of Rose Hill, it seemed better to move downtown. And there were reasons to do that anyway. One was that backside of Rose Hill Block is not safe at night, and they have a lot of night classes. People don't like to leave their cars parked down there on Edgefield. And also the terrain was pretty rough. It was up and down and all kinds of little walks and walls and things. And for elderly people, it's a little bit difficult to get around. So they liked better, they thought a downtown location would also be safer and easier and give them more exposure. So I think they're going to do very well down there. But all three of my children turned out to be quite artistic because they grew up with an art center in their backyard. And so they were involved all the time.
Yeah. Which ran from what, in the 70s, would you say? When did you start?
71, I think we started.
About 71 up until, what, 93 then?
I ought to learn that date because it's also in the same year we started the Historic Aiken Foundation. After there was a big fracas about cutting down 60 pine trees on Chesterfield Street, and we realized that there were a lot of people who would protest, but we didn't know how to get hold of everybody in time. So we decided we should have a group that would stay in very cordial touch with the city and find out what's happening before it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And at first the city saw these people as adversaries and sort of troublemakers because we were trying to stop things that were already in the works. But now that it's been 20 years, they've decided that we're pretty nice people. And they have the Historic Preservation Board, which is made up almost entirely of the past presidents of Historic Aiken. So, and then our people are on the zoning board and on the CBA. So, yeah, I think they like us now. They don't think we're crazy.
And you served on what, zoning board of adjustment?
I think about 7 years till I moved outside the.
Okay, because I see your name on the
I
road
was
there.
there. I think in either 7 or 8 years. I was the lieutenant for George Anderson. We had a fine time down there.
Okay. In fact, he mentioned your name at our last meeting.
What in the
He
world
was,
is
oh, well, now he was talking about in the good old days when we could do this and the city's gotten complicated over the years and what we can do and can't do. But he was talking about the order which the meetings
Well,
were
see,
held.
everything gets more complicated when you get more people involved. And to me, big cities have big problems and little cities have little problems. And so all of this hand-wringing over, downsizing at SRS and slow down in economic growth, I do not see as a disaster at all. The city has a wonderful hospital set up and a university and a museum and a glorious library. It's got fine churches, gardens. It looks like an almost perfect place to live. And I just don't see that more of the same thing would make it in any way better. You just bring in more people and put more pressure on the city services and you just have more problems.
So more is not good all the time.
No, more and more doesn't mean a thing. It was pretty nice the way it was. And I think it's still a lovely city. And the city council has always been very, very responsive. They may be more annoyed than they let on, but they've always been very pleasant to us when we say we're worried about, the loss of certain qualities. And they always seem to be very sympathetic. And I think what's happening in downtown Aiken is going to be wonderful.
Oh, nothing but a plus. Yeah. When you were on the board, who was George Sanderson the chairman when you?
George has always been
Always
the
been
chairman.
there?
Yes,
Okay.
George will be chairman till the Lord calls him home, and he is a good one.
No,
He's
he is.
very dignified, very courteous. He gets things moving. There have been so many different people.
I
Doris
was going to
Chesser
say,
was
can you
on.
remember some other people? on the
Doris
board?
Chesser was on, and Mr. Billy Franklin. Is that who I mean? Manager of Phelps now.
Howard? Billy Howard?
Billy Howard.
Franklin Howard was Billy is now the manager, but it was Franklin.
Well, Billy Howard was on.
Okay.
Mr. Charles Crites, Joe Busby.
Like C.T. Coleman.
Oh, yeah, he was on.
Okay. And there was a fella.
Pat Walk.
Okay. Was there a fella, and I think he used to be associated with Aiken Tech, big fella, lived in County Hills. I was going to bring his name up, but I can't think of his name. But he could have been on the
I can't remember.
commission.
Louise Babb was on for a while. And I found it very, very awkward to vote against things. It's very uncomfortable when people that you know well come, you know, and are on opposing sides, and you finally have to take one or the other, you know. You have to declare yourself. I found it sometimes very difficult. And people would call at night, and you know, I hardly knew what to say. That was back when they were talking about satellite dishes, and I haven't heard any more about it. They don't make them now.
Because you control them and got it under control. We don't have problems with them. Basically, it came down to put them in the backyard if you want them, and that's what they did.
Now they're 18 inches high.
Yeah, I mean, they're just tiny.
Oh, yeah.
They used to be huge.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But they will be looking at the small ones now. Basically, the way it is now, from how policy was set back then, they are still supposed to be in the front yard, but with new technology, they're putting them all over. So that's one of the things they'll be looking at to see if that's
Well, I
if it's
can
okay.
remember how horrified people were when they discovered that there were all these zoning boards and things that, you know, and you had to go and ask permission to do things. We had a big fracas over an enormous sign that was on top of the Palmetto Federal Building. And I was the one who made the motion that they had to take it down. They sued the city because they had invested a great deal to put it up. Mr. Hawley said that they wanted it to serve as the focal point of Aiken. And we didn't see why anybody's sign should be a focal point of Aiken. Down it came. That was back when they were talking about dozens of little beer signs. You know how many, they still can have a lot, you know, in these convenience stores. They're still overdone, but they're better than they were. I enjoyed my time serving down there. It was a great pleasure. And I'll be down to the next meeting on Tuesday the 20th.
You're going to be,
What's happening
Yeah.
Tuesday the 20th?
that's the one probably on SRS Credit Union.
The
the one you're-
ambulances,
Oh, okay, you're on the ambulances, okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
they'll give you a little,
Uh,
we're going to have to talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I have, pick your issue. I have 4 big issues that night. That's going to be a long meeting.
Yeah, I
I'll-
read about another one today, and I've already forgotten what it was.
So, probably, has Lucy called you yet? Lucy Knowles?